Most people think empaths are weak, too emotional, too sensitive, too soft. But the truth is, a fed-up empath is one of the strongest and most dangerous forces you can face. Not because they seek revenge or become mean, but because they change, they grow, they evolve. Carl Jung believed that our real strength comes from accepting the darker, hidden parts of ourselves. He called this our shadow. For empaths, this journey often starts with pain. They love deeply. They feel deeply. And they often get hurt deeply. But that pain doesn't break them. It changes them. The journey through pain. Empaths often go through betrayal. They face manipulation and emotional abuse. At first, they might put up with too much. They hope others will change. They keep giving chances. But over time, something shifts inside them. They stop reacting the same way. They stop chasing people who hurt them. And most importantly, they stop needing approval from anyone else. This isn't giving up. This is what Jung called individuation. It means becoming whole. The empath starts to face their shadow self. They look at their people-pleasing habits. They see their fear of being rejected. They notice how they've let themselves be drained by others. And instead of running from these truths, they own them. They learn from them. They grow through them. Living in tension. Jung said empaths live in what he called the tension of opposites. They are sensitive, but also strong. Emotional, but also logical. Open to others, but also guarded when they need to be. This isn't confusion. This is power. It lets them see through lies while still having hope for people. It helps them love deeply, but also walk away when they need to. This emotional range gives empaths a special kind of intelligence that goes beyond just thinking logically. They don't just feel things, they see patterns. They pick up on moods and hidden motives that others miss. They store emotional experiences like information. And over time, this information becomes like a map, a way of knowing what's real and what's fake. Pain becomes wisdom. Every time an empath gets hurt, they learn something. They see how manipulation works. They understand how people use charm, silence, guilt, or drama to get their way. And instead of becoming bitter and angry, they become clear. Their heart are still open, but their eyes are sharper than ever before. This is when the narcissist starts to lose control. Narcissists need predictable reactions from people. They want you to beg. They want you to cry. They want you to explain yourself over and over. But a fed-up empath doesn't do any of that anymore. They step back, not out of fear, but because they now see the truth. They stop reacting automatically. They choose their next step carefully, based on what's best for them. Finding balance. Jung talked about something called the transcendent function. It's what happens when you bring together two opposite forces inside yourself, like love and anger, compassion and personal power. When you do this, you become a more complete version of yourself. This is exactly what happens when an empath stops being a people pleaser and becomes someone who values themselves. They still care about others, but they don't give too much anymore. They still love people, but they don't lose themselves in that love. They're no longer controlled by their emotions, but they aren't numb either. They feel everything, but they respond with awareness instead of just reacting. The power of no. One of the strongest things a fed-up empath learns to do is say no. No to manipulation, no to emotional games, no to trying to save people who don't want to change. And that no isn't cold or mean. It's sacred. It's the boundary that protects their peace, their energy, and their purpose in life. They stop trying to prove their worth to others. They stop chasing relationships that make them feel small. They stop thinking they have to be the healer in every situation. Instead, they walk away, quietly, completely, and the silence they leave behind speaks louder than any words ever could. True independence. At this point, the empath becomes what Jung would call psychologically sovereign. That means they don't need approval from others to feel secure. They don't need someone else's love to feel worthy. They become their center, their foundation, and from that solid place, they choose only relationships that are mutual and respectful. They no longer fall for charm without real character behind it. They don't confuse chemistry with true compatibility. They can spot a narcissist in 5 minutes. Not because they're guarded and suspicious, but because they're grounded in their truth. From wounded to powerful. The journey from wounded empath to awakened empath is like a hero's journey. It's not a straight path. It's full of tears and questions and long nights of thinking about everything. But in that darkness, the empath finds their light. Not the light of being perfect, but the light of knowing what's true. They no longer try to fix people who don't want to be fixed. They no longer make themselves smaller to keep the peace. They no longer accept one-sided love. They've learned that loving others is important, but loving themselves is sacred. They become strong, not their empathy, but because of it. Their ability to feel deeply is no longer a weakness. It becomes their compass, their guide, their power. The truth about real strength. Carl Jung taught that real power doesn't come from pretending to be strong. It comes from becoming whole, facing your fears, facing your shadow, facing your pain, and then choosing to live with the wisdom you've gained. The fed-up empath is living proof of that journey. They are no longer trying to be everything for everyone. They are simply being true to themselves. And that truth, that quiet, steady, grounded truth, is what makes them truly unstoppable. The psyche remembers what the eyes forget. If this message spoke to something hidden within you, don't let it disappear. Like, share, and subscribe, not just for more content, but to join a growing space where truth, healing, and self-discovery matter. And remember, the fed-up empath represents one of the most powerful transformations a person can make. From victim to victor, from wounded to wise, from reactive to sovereign. That transformation is available to anyone willing to do the work.